Jack it up. Jack it up. Jack it up. Jack it up.
Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, thank you for calling a special session to discuss the 26-27 KCPD requested budget. As a chief of police, I know that I may sound like a broken record, but this is what I say every year, that I have the responsibility to submit a budget which represents a comprehensive assessment of the true costs required to operate a police department of our size and scope. The demand placed upon our organization continues to grow, and it's essential that our resources align with those expectations. This request is designed to ensure that our agency remains positioned to deliver the highest standard of public safety services while also supporting the dedicated men and women who carry out this mission every day. I look forward to working with the Board of Police Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager's Office on a collaborative, transparent budget process to truly define the priorities of public safety in Kansas City. This budget reflects more than financial requirements. It represents a strategic commitment to our workforce and the community we serve. By prioritizing people, operations, and technology, we are laying the foundation for sustained excellence and long-term organizational success while also working with the city to manage budgetary concerns and constraints. And with that, I will kick this to you, Major Heinen.
Good afternoon. I'm Major Josh Heinen. I'm the major over the fiscal division of the department. We're going to do a quick PowerPoint presentation. I think you all have a copy of the slides there. Just to go over high level what it is we're asking for as an organization and how fiscal year 27 is going to move us forward with all the goals and objectives that we have in place. Next slide. One thing I like to do at the beginning of the presentation every fiscal year is just to go over the numbers. Oftentimes people get confused with all the numbers that come out of this process. And so here's looking at the big numbers. This is what you'll see here is the $348 million is our general fund ask. That is the operational budget for the police department. That's what we use day to day. The next number you'll hear is the city funds. That is our general fund to include all of our grants, combat, public safety sales tax, and health levy. And then finally, oftentimes what the public sees on this budget is the big number, which is all funds, and that includes our treasury accounts, funding that we hold over here. And what makes that number so much bigger is some of those treasury accounts that we have on, we call it our side versus the city side, but then also a lot of our grants because we use that account to take in revenue and appropriations and submit it back to the city with grants. So a lot of the stuff is double counted in that number, and that's what inflates it up to that point. And so for the remainder of this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to talk about the general fund, the operating budget of the police department. Next slide. Here is the breakdown of what that looks like. You'll see here, as with most years, approximately 90% of our general fund budget goes to personnel costs. They are what make this operation run. Our personnel is our number one priority. And so as you can see, it's really about getting in as much personnel as we can for the safety of this city, but as well as the remainder of the budget there is all about the resources and the equipment needed for them to do their jobs. Next slide. So this is a breakdown of what our increase is this year. And this increase is requested over what it was or is appropriated for this current fiscal year. It looks like a big number. I get that. But what we're going to do is break it down and show you that a majority of this, honestly, we really don't have a lot of control over. It is stuff that we have to manage the day-to-day operations of the police department. So you'll see there, again, 90% of our budget goes toward personnel costs, $21 million of that increase is for salaries. We will break that down here in this next slide to show you what that looks like. $10 million goes to pensions. That pension is an actuarial valuation that is done every year through our pension group, and that is part of, it's outside of the 25%, and it's part of a payment on the city side that they make toward our budget, but we still include it as part of the general fund. The settlements, as you all know, that settlement cost has increased those funds. It's not like we're trying to build up a big pool of funds. Every bit of that is already obligated. That's the worrisome part going into next fiscal year is it's a big increase, but it already has, obligations that it's going toward. Health insurance, that's something that we're trying to fight every single fiscal year. We project that it will increase again. Luckily for us, our utilization rate is showing to be declining over the past couple of years. It was over 100%. And so that's why we have been seeing such big increases in our health insurance, but we are starting to see a decline. So we're hoping that number will come down over the next few fiscal years. Workers' compensation, again, that's something that we see that goes up incrementally over the continuing fiscal years, and that as well as the other adjustments. You can go to the next slide. So this is something we wanted to look at. We've had a few meetings with the city manager already. We understand the projections from finance over at the city. They are looking at this next fiscal year as a slowdown of growth revenue in around the 5% range, and they're looking at projecting a potential fund imbalance on the city side. And so that's something that we're trying to work with them on and figure out how we can make our budget work within the constraints that they are projecting over there. One thing we do want to note is that if you look at this slide, this is a lot of our budgetary increase in that number is stuff that's beyond our control. It's stuff that we have to make this organization run. And so our pension cost, it's actuarial valuation. It's really not within our control. Health insurance increases, there's nothing we can do about that. Settlements, unfortunately, it's kind of outside of our control too. We know that money is already obligated. It's just there to pay the bills. 27th pay period, that is something that just happened to fall on this calendar year. It's unfortunate because it's a big cost, and it appears to be a bad year for that to fall on the city side of things, but it is something that's just within the way we do our pay periods in the calendar. It's the exact same thing that happens over at the city side of, they had it 2 years ago, I believe, where they had their 27th pay period that they had to account for in their budget. Workers' compensation, it's a must-have, and then our member positions. We're seeing our sworn member positions increase. This is the first year in the last 4 years we are able to push this number up, and by no means are we going to take our foot off the gas here. We have to have those officers in the door. We know we have the World Cup coming this next fiscal year. This city has a great need for those members, and so we think we can add another 50 positions this next fiscal year. And then last year, we received approval for the TO spots for telecommunications, 10 call takers, 20 dispatchers, and this is to just roll it in. All the other 663 TO spots we have for professional staff, we're asking for funding, and so this is just a part of those TO spots. Next slide. This is more of a breakdown of our general fund personnel services, so that $21 million you saw on the previous slide. We talked about a lot of this, 27th pay period, the full cost of last year's pay adjustments. One thing I want to point out, or a few things I want to point out, are the 3 new positions. We're asking this year's budget 3 TO spots for professional staff, and what that is the grants that we have hired folks under for our crime lab, for our biology DNA section. We're seeing a decrease in those federal grants, and unfortunately it does not have the funding capacity for 3 members of our DNA section, and so we need to absorb that cost into the general fund. That is by no means a portion of the police department that we can reduce staffing in. They're still fighting a backlog. They're always fighting a backlog, so we have to keep those members there and strive to do it. And then one of the other things, parking garage fund, It's something we've talked about past fiscal years. The MOU that we had with the city for that fund has sunsetted, or it will sunset May 1st of 2027, which means in the past that money was still part of our 25%, but it was held over on the city side. It's just going to be coming back into our budget on this side of things. And so it's not really an increase, it just increases the number we see on our side. It's a little bit complicated, but it's for 10 members for parking control, and it was all part of this MOU that sunsetted. And so we're just moving the appropriations back to our side of things, and that's what that increase is there. Finally, officer and sergeant pay scale adjustments. We are seeing positive results come back from the job that our employment unit is doing with recruitment, retention, with the recent pay scale adjustments we've had 2 years ago. We're seeing a positive result from that, but we have to remain competitive. We know going into 2026, May 1st, 2026, we have 124 sergeants and officers that will have 25 years on and can leave the department. We have to do something to keep those members here through the World Cup. We have to do something to keep ourselves competitive with the market. And so what we are proposing in this budget is to move that starting salary for the officers up to $70,000 a year. Right now it's $65,000. We want to move it up to $70,000. And it still keeps us competitive, but it by no means puts us at the top. You want to go to the next slide here? This is we did a study of all of the regional agencies, both within the Kansas City area, but then kind of our sister cities in the surrounding states, what we view as our competition. We're all recruiting from the same pool, from the same job fairs, the same colleges, the same military organizations. It's all the same pool, and what a lot of those members see is, what is that starting salary? What am I going to make when I go work at that police department, and what's the workload at that police department? Going to $70,000 a year, it doesn't put us at the top by any means, but it at least puts us beyond the halfway point in this scale. So it gets us competitive. We at least remain competitive. Like I said before, we have to keep our foot on the gas here. We cannot go backwards in this hiring process. It took us a long time to get here, and we want to keep moving forward with it. Next slide.
Do you want questions now, or can we wait, or do you prefer we wait to the end?
If you want, we can ask questions now. I got a few more slides, so just so we don't, if it's, I don't want you to forget it at the end, so we can.
But I don't want to interrupt your rhythm, so go ahead.
Okay. The next few slides is just a breakdown of what you'll see in contractual services, commodities, stuff like that. A lot of this we've gone over, and I'm not going to go over every line here, but this just shows contractual services. It's a $28 million increase, or $28 million overall, but a lot of that increase is associated with settlement, work comp, those things that we really don't have any control over. The rest of it is just incremental increases based on inflation more than anything else. Next slide. Commodities is a lot of the same. The number isn't much bigger than we've had previous years. This is mostly inflationary increases consistent with what we're seeing on the city side. There's really nothing too big here. The biggest thing is this uniform transition. We're doing it over a 2-year period to be able to fit it within our budget constraints. And so some of the number, the wearing apparel there, you'll see is the second year of this uniform conversion. We're giving our members enough of the new uniforms to get them by till next fiscal year, and then we're going to give them the next set of uniforms. Next slide. Capital outlay, it's just our payment for our less lethal equipment that we use. We entered this contract a couple years ago. They call it the Taser 10, but it's a lot more efficient, less lethal tool, and this is just the second year payment of that. Next slide. Public safety sales tax. So we met with the city manager on a couple of occasions, trying to understand what the city's looking at from a funding imbalance side of things and what they're projecting for this next fiscal year. And it was a recommendation from him that we move a lot of the costs that we previously had in public safety sales tax to keep them within public safety sales tax. So prior to this, last year, I think at the end of last year, we talked about moving them all into the general fund. We're putting them or keeping them within the public safety sales tax fund to account for some of the imbalance they're seeing over on the city side of things. So that's, a lot of that cost is same as it's been for every other year. It's building operations, expenses, helicopter repair, one IT, a lot of our IT stuff is there. One thing I do want to point out with this is one of our 3 big projects with the renewal of public safety sales tax is a new body-worn camera, in-car camera system. So the current system we have now is beyond 5 years old. The technology has increased significantly than where it is now. And so we are in the middle of an RFP, getting responses. We're going to have a whole evaluation period. And so we put $3 million in this budget in public safety sales tax to be the first of a multi-year payment for a new body-worn camera, in-car camera system. We anticipate that contract being approximately 5 years to then upgrade all of our camera system to something that is more modern and a lot more efficient and transparent for our officers and for the community. With that, that is the end of this PowerPoint slide. And so I will take any questions that anybody has. Yes, that is correct. Yep.
While we're talking about that, I did have a question on that. I remember this from a couple of years ago when the statutory cap was removed, and that allowed us to take officer starting pay up. And we looked at similar data then. When you look at the other cities and their starting salaries, you're projecting the 70 as of May 1. Is the other data coming from those cities what they're paying today?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of them that are projected forward into May 1. I have the paperwork here. It was like Des Moines or somebody like that, but the rest of it is what they're paying today. Yeah.
Assuming that they increase next year.
We'll be
But
we'll be
we would
farther.
still be about in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, we'll still be about in the middle of the pack. I mean, I should have brought it with me. I have the slide from when we went to 65. I think we were like 4th or 5th from the top at that point. Going to 70, we're actually farther from the top because everybody else has increased that much more. And some of those agencies, if you're looking at Omaha and Des Moines as our primary sister cities in this area, they have a lot less pay steps as well. And so for those officers, I think it's Des Moines, it's only like 4 steps to get to the top. It's something crazy.
And don't read into my question. I'm not suggesting that we should be closer to the top. In fact, I think being competitive and near the top and having those other non-economic attributes that draws talent in is just as important.
Yeah, and our employment unit does a great job of, not only salary, but we have so much other things we can offer as an organization here. We have the support of our community. We have a lot of the support of our city council and our board, obviously. But then the ability for members to have opportunities within the organization to transfer and have specialized experiences and things like that. And if you look at the entire compensation package with insurance and things like that, we do have a lot to offer here. So you're right, we don't have to be at the very, very top, but at least stay within a little bit above the middle would be nice.
We want to be competitive, and we want to illustrate the value that we see in our officers and our professional, because we did the study last year.
Yep.
But also addressed getting them closer to market.
That's correct. Thank you.
So thank you for the presentation and all the work. I know this is a pretty piece, but there was a whole lot that happened to get to today. So thank you and your department and your team for getting to today. Maybe I shouldn't say of course, but I support this budget. I think this is a great location and a great number for us to be at. And the reason I say that is the momentum that has been coming for the last 2 years, and then leading up to this, we have seen numerous press events where the mayor and the chief have gone out and been able to acknowledge how great we're doing with these new vehicles and with the blue lights and with our increased numbers. Our increased numbers are one of those really frustrating things that we say we're at this number, but then we're not this number because somebody retires. And to your point of people who are coming to the 25-year mark, if we aren't having a strategy in place to keep people that are somewhere in the middle, to keep growing with this price increase for the starting pay, and then also for the things that we're doing with the pension side, I think that would be a slippery slope to take us backward and move back from the progress that we've made if we don't keep moving forward with these numbers, because these 1,200 officers we have, I know we want to get to 1,400. We're not going to do that if we lose 25-year-old people, 25 veteran people next year, and then don't get to make that experience level up in a new recruit. It takes a while. And so for the effort you're putting forward, we don't want to see us backtracking. And so I'm really excited about this number. I think that the price that you've moved to be, I mean, the only thing in the budget I don't like are the settlements number. And that's something that I think as we continue to work on making this department even stronger and better in not only the pay side and the benefit side, but even in the personnel and how we make people feel like they're welcome here as an officer in this department or a civilian in the department, I think that number will ebb away. And if that's the case, that's going to help our bottom line, because 7.5 million is a huge number that we don't get to just say, we're not going to pay that number, right?
Right.
So anyway, I'm supportive of this budget, and I appreciate the effort that you've done to put forward on it.
Thank you.
So just a quick follow-up question, Major, just so frame this for us. So you've got varying tenures of commissioners. So first question, what was last year's fund increase? I mean, how does this compare to that? Second, walk us through kind of the process as we leave here in this meeting and going forward with the city, the council, the finance. Talk to us about that whole process so we can understand it and the timeline.
Yeah, sure. So last year, if you're looking at big number to big number, it was around 7%, I believe it was last year. The year before that, when we did some salary adjustments, it was around 12%. The year before that, and you know what the difference is between this and that is the fact that we have these uncontrollable costs, if you will, that are adding into this year's budget. You know, $6.5 million for a 27th pay period that's money that would more than cover salary adjustments that we have here, right? The settlement money, that's money that would more than cover what we did in previous year for salary adjustments. It's those costs that really take away from the things we want to do as a police department and go to the things that we have to do just to keep our operations moving forward. The next step, to answer your second question, the next step after this is November 20th, I believe it is. We're still trying to schedule that meeting, is a presentation to the city manager. The formal presentation, we've had some conversations with him, but, and then after that, it'll be with, Christine printed out the schedule for me here, which was very nice of her. And then in February, it's the budget presentation to the Finance Committee over at City Council, and then it'll go before full council after that. And then it's usually mid-March that the budget gets approved by the full council, and then it'll take effect May 1st of 2026.
And I too would like to comment, as we spoke on Friday, about understanding that this, Christine, your team, understanding what it took to get to this. Thank you so much for what you do every year, and you're just a pro. So year after year, but thank you for everything you've done here. I think it's interesting. I don't know the settlement strategy. What is that? 7.5, 7? What are we doing at that budget factor? 7.
So it's a $7.5 million increase. It's actually a total of 10.
And I believe you stated that, and we currently know that if we look at what we've got scheduled out, we're actually budgeting to our current commitment. Is that an accurate statement?
That is an accurate statement, unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, so we know we're going in a
Yes.
I just mentioned that, and I understand, give and take the budget, but I just mentioned that because it is something that, in months to come, we'll talk about that. And, but yet, it can only be what it can be, so I commend you all for the calculation that went into getting us to that 7.3.
Thank you.
The city and most public institutions deal with the structural imbalance long-term in terms of how we address our budget needs. That's why you're hearing all this pressure from the city's finance department to mandatory or the cap 2% raises, hiring freezes, other austerity measures coming to City Hall. So I appreciate the acknowledgement of it, and I know that we'll do some work to kind of get there in terms of what our ultimate balance is. The thing that I'm worried about initially is the more substantial draws annually on our budget. So I'd love for you to explain the body worn camera plan a bit more. Is this anticipated as a one-time $4 million investment, or is this a $20 million investment in terms of what we have still on body worn RMA?
It's a little bit confusing in that slide. It's because it's in the same budgetary category number. But the body worn camera request is $3 million per year over 5 years. So a total of $15 million draw from public safety sales tax. And we've reached that number. We haven't got an official quote yet because we're still in this RFP process. But we know, looking at other regional agencies, what they've done for a body worn camera system, it's somewhere in and around that number. And so that's why we're trying to plan ahead for that, kind of like we did with the vehicles this year that you helped us out with. In this current fiscal year, it was a 1-year payment of an 8-year bond, $1 million a year to get us these vehicles. And this is what we're trying to do, a lot of the same. So it's not a big 1-year draw from public safety sales tax. It keeps it small, and it just tailors it over some year to year. But the body worn camera systems that exist out there right now, a lot of them have the transcription piece on it where an officer going to handle a call, everything within that conversation is going back to the report writing system. They get back there, and most of that report is already done. It's reviewing, it's looking at. They have a translation piece to them. Some of them do, where if they're talking, having an interview with somebody that only speaks a different language or foreign language, it'll transcribe it for them already there. There's some geofencing that occurs. So if an officer is in trouble and these other officers are going to assist, their camera systems and everything turns on automatically when they get into this preset geofenced area. There's just a lot more benefits and transparency that occurs from these new systems that we can get out of it. Our current subscription is ended. We're looking at either renew it or year to year at this point, but I think we're better off going with a new program entirely, so that way we can ensure that our officers have equipment that will withstand what their workload is out there and not fail on them. Our batteries right now are not lasting an entire shift even, so their batteries are dying mid-shift, which causes a lot of issue. If they're on a call and the battery dies and it's not recording anymore, that's really not acceptable by our society these days. And so we do have to do something different, and this is a good way, an opportunity to do it.
Do you anticipate technological change that actually can provide cost reductions in this area? Although that often seems unlikely, occasionally in data storage realm, and I understand data storage is a big part of what we are dealing with, cost on body worn cameras. Have we seen changes there at all, or any pathway that might get us some relief from this estimate?
And that's going to be a big part of the RFP process, is determining, right now everything's on-prem, and it is costly to store stuff on-prem because you got to back it up and you got to keep adding to it, and it keeps, and so a lot of these companies now are doing a cloud storage, but it's got to be a secure cloud, it's got to be a government cloud. And so, that's one of the big cost analysis we're going to do with this process, is determine what the most cost-effective way of going. Is it on-prem? Is it through the cloud service? Cloud service, you get a lot more storage for one set cost versus keep having to add to it and add to it and add to it. So it is one thing we'll be looking at, but to your other point, like technology, new technology is typically not cheaper. Yeah, it's part of the same system or the same package where the body worn camera and the in-car camera talk to each other. They're part of the same system. One thing that I think is really a cost savings or a cost reduction with the in-car camera system is now they all have, well, not all of them, but most of them have a capability to serve as an ALPR camera. So instead of putting up stationary ALPR cameras all over the city, we just exponentially increase the amount of cameras that we have, and they're roving all the time, kind of like putting them on the city buses and streetcars and things of that nature. And so I do think that saves us of having to put them at specific locations because we already have cars driving through there all the time. No, I think we would probably continue with both of them because we still want to maintain what we have. If we don't want to lose, if we have an ALPR camera that still has life left in it on a pole and we can go do a little maintenance to it and keep it there, I think it's a value added for sure of doing that. At some point they're at end of life, and then you have to have a conversation about replacing it entirely with a brand new camera or what you do then. But then, we've gotten 10 years of life out of a lot of our ALPR cameras, most of which have been purchased by the Police Foundation. And so the maintenance of those has really been supported a lot by them.
To city operations in some areas. Maybe there's not a pathway there, maybe there isn't, but I always encourage you to do that. One thing that I think about though with that is our parking control officers, and we're maintaining 10. The city's become more aggressive in that, for better or worse, but it seems like they're active. Has it been some consideration in reducing the total number of parking control officers? Granted, it's a small cost saving, but it is one entirely, or do we still see necessity for the program long-term and say,
We haven't given any consideration to reducing the program. We still see a need for the members that we have. You sit down and talk to one of them, and they're getting pulled all over the city. Technically, hey, we're supposed to be assigned here, we're supposed to be assigned here, but like officers, they're working the entire city because the need from the community exists still to pull them everywhere. But I mean, it's something we can definitely look at, and we can always look at to see if there's a more efficient way of doing that.
you know, how many members we have right now?
You know, off the top of your head, Christine?
They're almost full up, those 10, those 10 in particular that we're talking about. They may have one higher slip available, but they're almost to full staff now.
She said that it's, the funding is for 10 positions. And Deputy Chief Maven, you may have to correct me if you know, but I think we have 9 filled.
That sounds about right. I know we have onboarded 2 or 3 early this year. Sometimes we lose one, but we are pretty full right now. I can give you the exact number of that. They've got citywide territory as opposed to the downtown relationship, which is the city of which works for themselves, right? Downtown, where they work together. So our parking control people cover about a little under 300 miles of the city, and the city covers that half area. I might be off by a few miles, but the downtown parking control is basically inside that loop, and then our parking, those 10 people cover the entire rest of the city and everything. And that's always been that way since the. And then, I think that's all.
Okay, thank you.
No, go ahead, Heather. Go ahead.
I just wanted, I want to say a few things about the numbers here. So we're basically spending 4.1 million on these new 50 sworn officers and the 10 call takers and 20 dispatchers in that budget. And this is a really good thing. Sometimes I think we forget to we just talk about the numbers and we forget that these represent a whole bunch of lives. And we have 504,000 members in this city, right, residents? And the more that we are doing this on these call takers and these dispatchers, the better give them more money, we're gonna have less crime. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, if we continue to do these kinds of things, and we're beefing up our officers, and we're beefing up the numbers of call takers, and we're getting those things with this money, that means people are going to be better served. And this is a budget not for you guys, to just look out for them, but it's to protect the 504,000 people. And I hope that we're seeing that when we're talking about these numbers and not just saying, that's a big number, because it is a big number, but this is the number one reason people are gonna live in Kansas City. They're not gonna live here for, you know, a fancy new arena or something, but they are gonna live here for the safety of their families when they take them to school, or they come home, or play in the parks, or whatever they're doing. And they need us for this number, and so I'm glad that we're doing this, but that seems like a big number, and it is, but it's not when you look at the fact that it's a really stressful job. And I'm not gonna say that their job is more stressful than the police officers, because I'm not either one, so I'm not gonna pretend that I know what it's like. But, you know, these people get off a call and they go right to the next call, and go right to the next call. And it's not like, hey, you wanna go have lunch? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in fear for my life. These are stressful calls, and these are stressful moments, and we need as many people in those chairs upstairs as we can have to answer these calls 24/7, because trust me, Mayor Lucas gets all of his bad calls about the fact that the police are not answering the phone calls. And I got put on hold on emergency or whatever, right? And this helps make that not so much an everyday occurrence. So, thank you.
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, Major, just for a point of clarification, since the mayor brought up the body-worn cameras, now, wasn't that also originally funded by the Police Foundation?
It was, yeah. 5 years ago, the Police Foundation,
And when did it come into the budget, or is this the first time it's coming into the budget? I know it's coming through the public safety sales tax.
the Police Foundation was able to fund the initial purchase of them, but the annual subscription, the renewal, has been part of the budget. And so we've been using the city, but, you know, this time around, we have a conversation around, you know, the city funding what it takes to truly have public safety in Kansas City, and this is a big piece of that.
Also, you talked about the kind of the double counting in the treasurer's account. Just, obviously, that jumps off the page as the biggest percentage increase. How much of that is that double accounting, and does it impact the year over year? Because if you double count each year, I guess so kind of guide me through those numbers, if you don't mind, Major.
A lot of it has to do with setting up appropriations for grants. And so we're a little bit different in the city. The city will carry over grants year to year. So if they get a $3 million grant for 3 years, let's say, they carry it over year to year. We request the money for what we think we will spend in that grant in this fiscal year. And so the way it works is we set up an appropriation with the city on the city side of things, and we spend the money out of there. We get it in from the grant on the treasury side, and then it remits back to the city. And so it's set up as a revenue, you got to correct me if I'm saying this wrong, on the revenue on our side, and then appropriation on the city side. So it's counted twice in that number. So it's a $3 million grant. It's set up $3 million over here and $3 million over here. And that's why you see the big gap in that whole number there, the last number. The main purpose of that treasury's account is to just, that is our mechanism for taking in funds, whether that's from a self-funded program like our private officers, or, you know, when we have a class at the academy or something like that, and that's how we take in the funds, but then also for grants. That's how we set up the funds for grants and pay the city back, because we have to pay it off their funds initially.
So my last question, and probably to the chief. Chief, you'd mentioned in your letter the needs at the Central Patrol Division, but I know that the city actually owns that real estate and would fund. So that's obviously a separate conversation that we're having with the city as to the needs there. I know we own the maintenance of it once it's in place.
Our ongoing conversations, and we've done the mock-up, or I guess like the plans, potential plans, and different options. But I think it would be up to the city also where exactly Central Patrol would land, whether it be in its current position or somewhere else.
Thank you.
how do you, I imagine there is a schedule or a formula for your desired public safety sales tax fund. I spent several hours today considering and discussing the public safety sales tax. Do you have a plan, kind of body worn cameras versus when you would look to see a central patrol appropriation versus some of the other needs? Is it as simple as you build out a model that has about $10 to $11 million per year of annual funds versus, then I guess, a remainder of $20 million for larger scale infrastructure like central patrol? How's that been laid out thus far, at least in what you all listed?
So it would be more like for us setting up a bond, like what we did for the previous public safety sales tax durations is set up a bond for the entirety of that duration to build those buildings. And so Central Patrol would be setting up a bond for the entirety of the 15 years to be paid out over that time. And so that's just an allocation that is in our budget in public safety sales tax, and you know it's really not doing other than paying the bond for that building. And so with the vehicle bond, kind of the same thing, where after 8 years, we renew that bond for the continuation of public safety sales tax, and then same thing with the body worn camera system after 5 years. Or, I mean, there's a potential that we can work it in, you know, maybe there's a 10-year subscription program with one of these, once we get it all, you know, down to here's the actual quote, see what that looks like over the term of public safety sales tax. But the reality of it is, looking at all of those prices, the percentage isn't that great. You know, in the past, it's always been primarily a law enforcement, a police department, public safety sales tax. Fire has their own, and we won't go down this road. But, so, you know, for what is a public safety sales tax that should primarily come to the police department, it's not a big ask, all three of those projects coming out of there. But it does involve a conversation, sitting down, you know, with yourself, the city council, city manager, whoever, about all the asks coming out of public safety sales tax and how do we fit this all in. It shouldn't be a race to the finish line with your bond and whoever gets there first wins. It's let's create a big plan over all of this and let's figure out what the priorities are of the city and the city council.
I certainly have a fiduciary duty to the rest of the city, but also this department. So the recommendation that I would make to you is to be efficient in those requests. I think your description of the history is correct. I think the present of, for example, Kansas City Fire Department may view it somewhat differently than this department does. That doesn't surprise us. And certainly the corrections discussion has a varying number in terms of what they look to, up to including the community resource center idea that, or the other day, speaks to a 6-story building next to municipal court. I don't find that practical, nonetheless. I know that's some of the discussion that's happening now. So the faster you are at making sure those are shared with us, the better.
Well, I have my design and my price tag, so if you want to meet after this, I'm happy to do that.
You got me on card. I will also note one other thing, and this is a thank you I want to say. Each year, to Commissioner Romeus' question earlier, and actually this started in a tough budget year with Chief Smith, but we tend to have a January or February, or a January and February meeting that speaks kind of to trying to reconcile if there are any budget disagreements at the end or anything of that sort. Chief Graves, I think, has done a very strong job in making sure that we get to a place that hopefully ensures that there's no real drama with where we are. I've seen that to be a very important meeting opportunity that we have each year. I imagine in a perfect world we have it all done in November and we just relax. But assuming it's not that, I will look forward to kind of hearing that too. And I think the department has been very active in making sure that we can be in that stable place that Commissioner Hall talks about. She and I served on city council at times that were vastly more interesting, and none of us necessarily want to do that. And so we look forward to having those chats.
Any other questions? If there are none, is there a motion to approve this proposed budget?
Second?
Moved and second. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And I'll abstain just because I have to be on the other side.
Understood. All right. Anything else that we need to take up regarding the budget? Agenda item we have, if not, accept the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
So I'm assuming you keep this one.